Bird! Get him, yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It is the 6th of February, and I'm telling you, it feels... You know how bad I whined last month on my intros? It was like, oh, it's cold, it's red, it's just terrible. I do not feel cooped up. I do not feel like the, what do they call that when you're cooped up all winter? Oh, what's the name of that? Cabin fever. Yeah, I feel like my cabin fever broke. And partly because, I had a really cool trip at the end of January. Just a quickie. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. And I've got a bunch of stuff coming up here in February. Heading down to Gunner Kennels, heading to Virginia, heading to South Carolina, coming back here on the weekend of the 20th when Matt Ranella is going to be in the house. We're going to be doing a podcast. That's going to be fun. Like the whole bulk of the middle of the month is just full of fun. And in March, you got Pheasant Fest, March 11th, 12th, and 13th. You have the BHA keynote. Oh, you didn't hear about that? I'm sorry, it's not BHA. It's MBHA. I will be the keynote speaker at the Michigan Bear Hunting Association banquet. Big banquet, 500 people. I'll be there making fun of bear dogs, bird dogs, and hunters in general. And that's going to be fun. So, yeah, it finally feels like I broke it. I feel like I broke it. Let's just get out. What's he say? Let's drop the gate. Patreon patrons are my number one sponsor. Have been for a long time. I couldn't do this without my Patreon patrons. If you don't know what I'm saying, if this is the first time you found the podcast, you go to Patreon, Patreon, look up Hunting Dog Podcast. It's all real easy. You can join one or two tiers. Both tiers get you the Zoom room, which is twice a month. And the other tier gets you Hunting Dog Talk. It's a little, somebody's told me to call it Hunting Dog Gossip. I talk about a lot of things I don't talk about on the podcast for several reasons, okay? But anyway, I appreciate every last one of you, as much as I appreciate all my listeners. Well, let's be honest. No, I appreciate the patrons a little bit more. But Pike Gear appreciates you all. They are my title sponsor, and they make the best technical clothing for the upland hunter out there. If you've been curious if you're Pike curious, then you ought to come out to Pheasant Fest, and you can see all the clothing. The new vests, pullovers, pants, shirts. I told Brent he needs to get a contract with Tommy John's to make technical underwear, because it's the only thing I put on my body. That's my only layer I won't change. My Tommy John's. I wonder if they'd be a sponsor. That'd be interesting. Brent, work on that for me, would you? Onyx, they will be at Pheasant Fest. If you haven't got it yet, you're like one of the last 17 people in the country that don't have it, that don't know where they've been, so they can't set a pin. Use the Hunting Dog Podcast promo code HDP20 and start your adventures with Onyx now. Now. Boss Shot Shells. Hey, they're going to be, well, put it this way. You come over to booth 534, 435, 536, 437. It's real close to the Purina Bird Dog stage. It's by Bird Dog Alley. I'm going to be there. Upland Institute's going to be there. Pike Gear's going to be there. Boss Shot Shells are going to be there. And maybe one other company that, well, I can't tell you yet, is going to be there. It's going to be another Hunting Dog Podcast Village. Come see everybody. And you will wait till you meet the people from Boss Shot Shells. If you didn't think it was enough to have copper-plated bismuth so you could really knock the birds down like you're swinging lead at them, wait till you meet the guys who make the shells. That is going to be a fun trip. You've got to come to Pheasant Fest. Walton's is going to be there. I keep telling you, get the catalog. Mark that little thing off in there. It says, how did you hear about the catalog? You mark off Hunting Dog Podcast because that's what I want you to do. But come there. They're going to have cooking demonstrations. You can learn a bunch. And they will have everything there as usual, but the meat. But in this case, they're going to be doing cooking. So actually, at Pheasant Fest, Walden's will have everything, including the meat. Purina will be there. They have one of the biggest displays at Pheasant Fest every year. It's the Bird Dog stage. Pro trainers from all over, usually Rick and Ronnie Smith, and sometimes Delmer Smith, depending on how his age and in health is doing, and other people that Purina has handpicked. They do seminars. Nobody puts back into the dog world like Purina. They put the best food in your dog's stomach, and they put the best backing behind the events you like. Period. That's right. Gunner Kennels will be in the booth, not necessarily with Addison and Macy and Emily and all the new people. No. But they sent me a couple new kennels, a bunch of koozies. I got a bunch of stuff to give away. And on Sunday, we're going to be giving away the kennels that they sent me. Yeah, that's right, because I won't have the room to bring them home. So we will have a raffle, and we'll draw it on Sunday. So I don't know how you're going to do it. You got to be there to pick them up. I'm not shipping them to you, and I'm not dropping them off on I-80 on my way back. Come to Pheasant Fest, and you can finally kick the kennels, because you can't hurt them. You can stand on them, dance on them, use them for a sawhorse. I had one fell out of the back of my pickup truck at 70 miles an hour, and the strap held onto it, and it hit the ground, bounced up, hit my truck. Wasn't a damn thing wrong with that kennel. Garmin. I will have all my Garmin gear. I don't believe Garmin's going to have a booth there, but I'll have my gear there. If you're thinking about something in the Garmin line, I'll be glad to help you with it. I'll have stuff from Canine Athlete there. New Dog, Hydrate and Recover, probiotics. These are the things that complement your dog. Just like we take a little bit better care of ourselves these days, take care of yourselves a little better and your dogs with Canine Health. See, I almost screwed that one up, and I'm not recording it again. Canine Athlete, brought to you by Wilderness Athlete. That's right. W Hunting Supply. You know, I could not talk Jason and Buddy to coming into there. You know, I think they should. I think maybe next year they will. But check out W Hunting Supply. You know, everything costs what it costs these days. You know, but service is what sets them apart. Service and knowledge about the products they sell. They're not just selling you stuff. They're helping you. They will work with you. They take care of you like family. That should be the tagline. W Hunting Supply. Get taken care of like family. Deck Drawer Systems. Deck just sent me some inserts for the drawers. They got a shotgun holder, a new container for the front of the drawer. They just keep coming up. I got the D-bag, meaning you could make it like a first aid bag. You could make it like a car emergency bag. But this bag is molded and it fits right in the deck drawer. Doesn't take up extra room. They just keep coming at it. And I haven't heard from them, but they may have a little mini deck drawer system to set up there for me at Pheasant Fest. Maybe. Shooting Sportsman magazine. You know, how do you kill this time of year when everybody except, you know, West Virginia and Tennessee is hunting still? You get your issue of Shooting Sportsman magazine, and you read about birds, guns, dogs, people, and places. That's what you do. That's what I do. Get you through those Januaries like I was whining about before. You know what else will get you through this next couple months? The Upland Institute. Don't wait. This is the perfect time of year to start doing trained retrieve. Unless your dog is one of those natural retrievers that brings it to hand, sits there and looks at you and says, thank you for shooting it for me, and here's your bird, which that don't happen very often. Most of these dogs will drop them at your feet or play with them, or you know what? Why deal with that? Why let your friends poke fun of you? Start right now. Go to the Upland Institute and look at the trained retrieve course. Give yourself something to do for the next couple months, and then it will be time to run the dogs on spring woodcock and grouse. Yeah. And I took a trip in January. I left on a Sunday. It was actually the Sunday that Bravo died that Sunday morning. And I had to leave for Sheridan, Wyoming, 5 p.m. out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got into Sheridan, Wyoming, 11:30 that night, or 10:30. Yeah, 10:30. And went over to the Weatherby plant. That's right, Weatherby. And got to meet Zach. Zach is my buddy at Weatherby. Zach invited me out there, but I got to meet Brenda and Adam Weatherby. I went out to their property. We shot a few chuckers and pheasants. We had the meat eater crew down there. Cal was there, a couple other guys. I just got this quick invite that said, hey, Ronnie, tell you what, I think we need to work together in 2022, and I think you need to come out here and meet the owners, see the plant, and shoot the guns. So that's what I did. I was literally back home in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 47 hours later. I'm telling you what, I was tired. It took me a whole week to recover from that shit. But anyway, you're going to be seeing some stuff from Weatherby. I'll be getting them in the mail. I probably should, not in the mail. I'll be getting them to an FFL dealer here probably this week. And you're going to hear me go on excessively this year about Weatherby shotguns. Yeah. Make a damn nice rifle, too. You know that. Everybody knows that. That's it. Wow, I did it. And I think it's that was 10 minutes, 11. That's not bad. I'm going to tell you something about this podcast coming up. Ollie I've already been invited this September to come to England and go on a shoot. I mean, I'm this close to like canceling my trip to North Dakota and going to England. This guy is the real deal, but Ollie is just like one of us. Like you think, and you're going to hear about this in the podcast, you think like, well, if you're hunting, you can't just be a regular old guy and hunt in the UK. Yes, you can. Ollie's just a regular guy with a regular job with a passion for dogs and shooting and shotguns and some dandy old shotguns. I will tell you, the sound quality, and I know everybody's like, oh, Ron, your sound quality's not that good anyway. No, I mean, typically it's fine, okay? It's not terrible. I don't have a sound engineer, but there was something going on the line, we weren't on the line, we were on the internet, but it's a little hard at moments, but you'll get the gist of it, and hope you enjoy this episode. One more thing, but this is really important. My friends and your friends at Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, want to let you know that the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, is now open. CRP is a great opportunity for those hard-to-farm acres. It helps improve the farm's profitability, delivers high-quality wildlife habitat, which is what we love, clean water, which is what we love, healthier soils, that's what the planet loves. And the CRP program is open right now through March 11th. Find your local Pheasants Forever or Quail Forever biologist, or go to pheasantsforever.org/CRP, or visit your local USDA service center. Farm the best and CRP the rest. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I'm on the phone with Oliver Rigsby Burgess. So if you can't tell that I'm talking to somebody over in the UK, then, back when I grew up, you could tell by someone's name that they were either from here or from there or from here or from there. And we never had any Burgesses moved into the neighborhood. But Oliver goes by Ollie. He said it's a lot easier than going through Oliver Rigsby Burgess. So, Ollie, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me.
I'd like you to just give everybody a little of your background here, and then we'll start talking about dogs and breeds and hunting in the UK and guns and all that fun stuff.
No, thanks, Ron. So I'm 41 years old. I'm sort of of Anglo-Swedish heritage. So my mother's Swedish. She came here as a student in the 70s, got swept off her feet, married my dad, who's sort of Anglo-Scottish. Live in what's called the Midlands, so about 100 miles north of London. Married, father of two, married to wife Hayley. 2 kids, boy and a girl, Henry and Georgie. But as I say, history-wise, grew up in the UK, spent a lot of time back in Sweden, and sort of been involved in what we call here game shooting and dog work really since the age of 6, so about 35 years now. So in the Midlands, it's quite an old part of the country. So living in a small village, quite a rural area, in a sort of old limestone farmhouse, originally built in about 1749.
So I'm trying to think. 1749 Was this like one of the groundskeeper's houses for one of the manors in the area? I mean, that's an old house. That's going on 300 years old.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, right, it's not even the oldest house around here, not by a long way. But no, it was an old farmhouse. You know, the old part that I'm in right now, that would have been built at that time, 1749, and then it would have been sort of added to, extended over time. You know, people had more food, better healthcare, and could keep more children alive, and needed more space, I suppose.
Well, my only you'll have to correct me on this, but my only knowledge of the UK is a trip there with my wife. And if you said I lived in the Midlands region, I'd be like, oh, okay, I hope it's in the middle, right? But is there big cities nearby you, or are you really just rural, kind of like I would be rural, and you have to kind of get somewhere to get to a town?
Yeah, I think, look, the UK is not a big place. So
right.
Nowhere is, apart unless you go up to the Highlands of Scotland, nowhere's really wild or remote. So most people would consider where we live fairly rural, but we're in a village, so there'll be a couple hundred people living here.
Right.
But I'm a 40-minute train ride into central London.
Okay.
I'm about 10 minutes to the local big city. It's nowhere's far from anywhere here.
Okay. Because I'm going back to Downton Abbey. You know, that was another series. I shared with you that my wife is a big Harry Potter fan and turned me into one. And then my other barroom knowledge of the UK is from watching Downton Abbey, right? Downton Abbey, yeah. All right, what do you got? Yeah. This is before we get into the other good stuff. I just have to always get personal. When we show shows here in the States, and they're a big hit, things like Harry Potter or Downton Abbey, do you as a lifelong resident of the UK? Do you look at some of that and like, oh, I wish they wouldn't keep putting on those movies about royalty and wizards, or are you just used to it?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nice being in a country that has such a long history, and we've got great history going back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Some of it we're very proud of it, some of it not so proud of. I think it's fair to say. If you go to some of our ex-colonies, they'll have some particular views, I'm sure. But look, what is nice is that you get this Anglophone culture in various parts of the world. So I can go to a place like New Zealand, talk to people fundamentally, but also that there's a lot of things about the culture that still feels very, very familiar. They've just adapted it and expanded it. So whether it's Southern Africa, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and indeed the US, there's this sort of shared Anglophone world culture that I think's great. It's part of the fact that we're able to talk today. I think if I think about those shows, answer your question, do you know the thing that really annoys me? Is because they're all about the landed gentry. And it's at some point in all of those shows, they will show game shooting.
Right.
And the depiction of game shooting will be terrible. They'll have all the wrong clothes, they'll have all the wrong kit, they'll be pointing guns at each other. And it's this perception of, and actually, you hear it in, some of your contemporaries in the States when they talk about the UK. There's this perception that everyone who shoots in the UK has a title, knows Prince Harry, but it couldn't be further from the truth. That actually, if you think about the majority of people involved in field sports, are actually, hardworking, down-to-earth people who are just having to work a bit harder to get access to the things that we love. So went a bit off piece there, but
no.
Yeah, I think that perception of, as I say, the upper crust, the gentry, being the only ones who do this, couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, you mentioned, for example, you kind of were starting to do this when you were 6 years old. You were out tromping in the farm fields and stuff. What was that like? Was your dad a hunter then?
Yeah, so he was. I would call him a very casual hunter. He got introduced. My dad's name's Graham. He got introduced by a friend of his called Dave Clare Bowitz, who basically they were work friends, and he got him introduced to clay shooting, then took him out on a small pheasant syndicate. He sort of did it for a few years when I was at a very impressionable age.
Mm-hmm.
And something about it. So we're talking only about 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Just it struck a chord with me, and I knew that's something I'd want to do forever.
Right.
And a big part of that was the dog. So he'd take me along, and being a dad of that generation, was happy to let me go off. And I'd be off with the dog handlers, chatting to them. I was obsessed with Springer Spaniels as a kid. And I'd just be off with them, in the woods, chasing the birds. And that was sort of the nascence of my love of shooting, my love of dog work. And I think what's interesting there as well is it was what we call a syndicate.
I heard you use that name. Yeah.
Yeah. So game shooting here is going back to, you get the big estates, of course you do, with the lords and the ladies, etc. But by far the vast majority of hunting in the UK is what we call syndicates, which is where you'll get 8 or 10 guns, 8 or 10 shooters, will basically club together and put money forward, and that'll fund, like on a small scale, the shooting rights on a farm,
Right.
The gamekeeper, or the bird rearing, the releasing, and it's very much done on like a smaller local community basis.
Right.
So it's all private land. It's all somebody owns it, somebody's running it. It's not open to everyone, but it is normal, everyday guys, working a job. And just putting a bit of money aside to fund their shooting in the season. So that was sort of my entry into the sport.
So it seemed accessible. Your dad did it. You got to run around and play with the dogs and probably grab birds. And although the dogs are supposed to grab the birds, but I'm sure you did a fair amount of that, as any young kid would have done. So getting I think you gave a good explanation. In the UK in general, the gentry, or what'd you call it? I said gentry. We said, what was the word?
Yeah, gentry, aristocracy.
No, but
everything I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah, no, the word you use for the syndicate.
Syndicate, sorry.
Yeah, because
yes.
in the States, the syndicate is kind of frowned upon. That's what we call the mafia. So
Yeah.
I don't know who. I'm sure you guys came up with the word first, but it sounds like, well, if I hunt on a small syndicate, they'd be like, oh, it's illegal, right? But that's just what they call basically what we would call here a bunch of guys going in on a deer lease with a farmer. It would be, and he would just come up with a set price, and then you guys have a relationship with him. Do you have any responsibilities with that landowner other than some kind of a entry fee or anything, or do you guys have to do work there on the property throughout the year, or do they take care of that?
So, I mean, it's got to be collaborative, and I'm not going to claim they vary, but it's not cheap. No hunting's cheap,
Right?
Particularly in the UK or Europe, but it's accessible. The average guy, if they save, they can pay for it. So what you need off the landowner, obviously, is the access. Also, you'll agree a certain acreage, which you'll get put down to cover crops. You'll normally pay the farmer to do that, and some will be, perennial cover crops. Some will be, for the start of the season, or some you'll expect to go through, depending on whether it's pheasant, partridge,
Right.
What you're looking to foster. But apart from that, then you employ normally a part-time gamekeeper. So this is somebody who may have another job. They may actually be a farm hand themselves. Aside, they'll do the rearing of the game birds, releasing them, doing feeding. So actually putting out supplementary feed. So whether that's just spinning off the back of a quad or in hoppers.
Right.
And actually predator control. So one of the big time-consuming elements being out at night, lambing foxes. We don't have coyotes here, so it's shooting foxes, catching up things like weasels. There's no predator control of sort of avian predators now in the UK. That would have been very much the Victorian era.
Right.
But it's keeping down the mammalian predators as much as possible.
Does that include, now I kind of jump into New Zealand and Australia, which you hear about, cats being a big problem. Do you have feral cat problems as well? Or is it just fox and mink and weasels and stuff?
Yeah, it's certainly not something that gets the headlines
Well,
as much
yeah.
as it does in the Southern Hemisphere. Look, we are a very urban world here, and I think there isn't a shoot in the country that doesn't have issues with. It wouldn't necessarily be feral cats, even domestic cats
Right.
cause problems.
Right.
But we're not living in a culture where it would be socially acceptable to have any control measures against
Gotcha.
the domestic or feral felines.
Right.
Is, I suppose, the politest way I can put it.
That's good.
They are a problem. It's just one of the things you have to
Right.
factor into your losses.
Right. So is there areas of the UK that have game populations? I mean, maybe it's species specific, but in these syndicates, in these small clubs, it is very common to rear the birds, release they don't live in a cage all year, but like you mentioned supplemental feeding. You're kind of doing the best to like propagate the land or seed the land, and they're still getting taken out by hawks or foxes, but they're living on the landscape. But you guys have to supplement that every year, or is there some carryover natural nesting?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, because actually there's a bit of a trend and movement at the minute. So we focus on what we call low ground shooting, which is effectively, England.
Right.
And then I'll cover sort of Scotland and the high ground separately. But so yes, they would be putting new stock in every single year. So they'd be, basically incubator hatched.
Yep.
Pen reared, and then they'd be put out into very large release pens. More as you get into sort of late spring, early summer, where these would be large pens with, say, sort of protective wire fencing, but there wouldn't be particularly for pheasants, there wouldn't be any roof on it. So if they wanted to fly off, they can.
Yeah.
And that would be sort of acclimatise them to the area before they're sort of released. In other words, basically just dump them into a wood, they'll all be taken out by predators very quickly.
Right.
So it acclimatises them. And over summer, they will then effectively release themselves, or take sections of fencing out. Partridge is slightly different, because whereas you would have, say, one or two big pens with all your pheasants in, because partridge being a covey bird,
Right.
and that's the same if they're reared. If you basically had one pen with 50 partridge, you create one covey of 50 birds. Whereas what you want to do is have lots of small pens,
Right.
with a covering on the roof. So you create, lots of smaller, say, dozen bird coveys dotted around. But actually, a really exciting movement at the minute, which is something that I'm very interested in, is moving away from this, because actually, particularly here, it's getting more and more scrutiny, the releasing of large numbers of game birds year on year.
Yeah.
And I think, as we become far more environment and sustainability focused, but also, we've got to. I always say to people that as the hunting community, we can learn from a lot of the great work that the LGBTQ community has done. It's not about, for them, it's not about trying to increase the number of gay people. It's often about trying to increase the number of people that understand and are allies.
Right.
And actually, we can learn from that in terms of, I don't need to turn everyone I meet into
A hunter.
Or a fisherman.
Right.
I just want them to see where I'm coming from. And we need to make what we do as responsible and acceptable. So what we're sort of slowly seeing a move to in the UK is to wild bird game management. So this would be where all of your focus on managing the landscape, all of your focus on gamekeeping is on creating habitat. So it resonates with a lot of stuff you hear from people like Forever and
Right.
over in the States. It's about habitat creation. It's about creating a natural feed. There is still predator control involved in that mix. But actually creating, as I say, better quality, healthier wild bird populations that are then self-propagating, sustainable. And we know this can work, because actually grouse shooting, going to highland,
Right.
or high ground sport, which is almost 100% down to large estates owned by very, very wealthy people.
Right.
But that's all wild bird. There's no releasing, there's no rearing. It's all about managing the heather moorland and creating, as I say, those sort of large, healthy red grouse populations. That style of management also has the benefit that it creates the most knock-on benefit for other species.
Right. So it really goes to the fact that just like here, let's say in Michigan, we used to have a lot of pheasants, but we don't anymore. But because we lost the habitat. So you guys are being aware, like whatever you can do on the land, like you say, native grasses, any kind of cover. So that is becoming a trend where it almost just for the acceptance part of it then, really. So someone isn't saying, oh, the poor birds are here. At least they're quote unquote, natural birds. And instead of creating the pen, you created the property for the bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, when it's natural feed, it's nesting habitat.
Right.
That doesn't just benefit game birds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking use of agricultural subsidies. So, things like CRP in the States would be a very, very big deal for wild bird habitat and management. So we're using what we call stewardship grants here to plant sort of, rather than having an arable crop in a field, going to a wild bird mix, planting, and as I say, just creating a better, more biodiverse landscape that benefits better quality bird hunting, albeit smaller numbers.
Right.
But actually, better quality wild bird. We don't have the wild places, but that doesn't mean we can't hunt wild birds.
Right.
In rural places.
Yeah.
Because I think where we should probably, my view, and it's only my view personally, be looking to take bird hunting in the UK.
Yeah. Does the UK have a comparative or a comparable group like we have in the States called, like, we have Pheasants Forever, which is a habitat organization which certainly helps propagate pheasants with their habitat projects, or DU with wetlands, or Rough Grouse Society with, sustainable forest. Is there a sportsman's group that kind of umbrellas the fellas like you, just the average guys that are out there, upland hunters?
Yeah, so there are a couple. I mean, there's the British Association of Shooting and Conservation, BASC. There's the NGO, which is the National Gamekeepers Organisation. I'm personally involved in one called the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust, GWCT. Yep. And again, as a group, it's very focused on not just game. So it's game and wildlife conservation.
Right.
And their real focus is on scientific research, then being applied to creating better habitat and more sustainable game populations, as well as they're doing some really exciting research into the social benefits of country sport.
Yeah, just in case we lost that part. So I was asking if the habitat or sportsmen's organizations in the UK, what does that look like?
Yeah, so there are a number of organisations. I'm personally involved in one called the GWCT, which is the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust. And they're very focused on scientific-based research into improving wildlife habitat, not just for game species, but also for creating more sort of biodiverse environments. They're also, in a lot of their research, very interested in the social impact of shooting sports in the UK. And really interestingly, they've seen that the social benefits of shooting sports are very much weighted towards that kind of local syndicate model.
Gotcha.
You're seeing multiple generations engaging with each other. You're seeing people that could be in normal other situations very socially excluded. So particularly, pensioners, etc., actually being able to have an active outdoor social life.
Right.
Shooting, beating, working dogs, whatever. And then actually you see far more multi-generational contact than you would in almost any other sport that was sort of surveyed, which was really interesting. Yeah, and I sort of got involved with that through a friend of mine, a guy called Billy, who sort of introduced me to that. And it's really interesting to see what we're learning here in the UK from what organisations like Pheasants Forever have been able to achieve in the States. I think the most interesting difference, though, is we can only do this work on private land.
Really?
So there is no public land here. It just does not exist.
Yeah.
So we can only benefit, wildlife with the cooperation and involvement of private landowners. Because, and actually, that also creates this interesting dynamic of, you're a membership funded organization, but you're going to work on a piece of land that 99.9% of your membership will never have access to.
Right.
Unless they put their hands in their pockets and pay for it. But I think you've just got to put that aside and just say, do you believe that, wildlife conservation, supporting the future of shooting sports, investing in research for game and wildlife management and propagation is the right thing, or it isn't? And I know which side of that debate I'm on.
Yeah, exactly. What about youth and shooting sports and youth and hunting? Is that something you have to wait till you're a little older, or do they? Because I know in our schools, like not in, where I grew up in the city of Chicago, that was not a thing. But when we moved to Michigan and my daughters all went to school, they all were able to get their hunter safety and boater safety and in their public school system. Do they have any of that in the UK?
Yeah, so I mean, look, you mention guns near a school here, you'd probably get the police called first of all.
Okay.
So it's absolutely nothing to do with the education system, at least not the state education system.
Right.
Yeah, so basically it's not as well structured. So there's no hunter safety, there's no formal training, for anyone with a license. In order to even have a gun here, there are pretty much two tiers of licensing here. Section 1, which is for what we call firearms, which would be, centerfire rifles, etc. There's no handguns allowed here at all.
Right.
So centerfire rifles or shotguns that hold more than 3 rounds would be classed as a firearm.
Right.
Then you have a section 2, which is a shotgun certificate. So it could be, your normal single barrel, double barrel, or a repeater that has its magazine restricted to 2 rounds.
Right.
You could. So it's very easy to get a shotgun certificate. Very difficult to get a firearm certificate. I do have both, but it took a lot of years to get my rifle certification. But there's no training for that. They're far more interested in talking to your doctor for history of mental instability. You have to get referees who have to be either like a school teacher or a judge or some local worthy. So it's very convoluted. That being said, so like myself, my father, although he wasn't that interested, did have a shotgun certificate. He did have a shot, and therefore it was actually for me very easy to get into this.
Right.
I started shooting at 12, Winchester 24 over and under. Quickly migrated to a sort of old Belgium side by side. And that was ever since. But if you're not from, and I suppose this is probably true in the States as well, if you're not from a shooting household, it's incredibly difficult to get into it. And that's what I'm really keen about, bridging the gap. So, and again, going back to that, you don't need to create lots of participants, but you do need to create allies. So, I'm really enthusiastic about, if my kids' friends want to come out and do beating on a shoot for a day,
right,
or stand with me and the dogs, or come fishing with me after school, because my son's really big into fishing. We, especially in this country, need to be the people that say yes and are asking people that, and trying to give people that opportunity, because otherwise they just will not have that opportunity to do it. And unless we sort of propagate when people are at that, I mean, impressionable is not really the right word to use, but at a stage in life where they're going to be open-minded to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even if they never go on and do it as an adult, at least you've left them with a happy childhood memory that people who fish, people who hunt are actually good guys doing a good thing.
Right.
And that's what I'm really passionate about. So it's not even just making young people take this up as a lifestyle.
It's just putting it in a good light. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's so funny too, because now that there are no, as much as there's no public land to go hunt on, and there's no public school support. So between the private farm owner, landowner, or the syndicate owner, and this is like private on private on private, right? It's like all of you, like we could go to Lansing, Michigan, and we could probably get some support for a program, right? And you not only have to have the private support, your own dollars, and then you're also your own spokesman. Like you're all everything. You have like nothing but private support to do this with. So I give you. Is it? I mean, I know this would be a really tough question, but has it been like that for 50 years or 100 years, or do you know?
Really, Ron, it goes back to 1066 with the invasion of William the Conqueror. When he arrived and he divided up the country amongst the nobles who'd come over the channel with him.
That's it.
It sounds like a flippant answer, but it's the truth.
Wow.
You know, there are, you know, families, you know, landed families in this area, who can trace their lineage back to the Norman invasion.
Oh my God!
And they will have tens of thousands of acres.
Wow!
And that's a system. So you had the royal forests, and if poachers were caught poaching the king's deer, they'd have their hands chopped off. Or, and it sounds, it's probably for you guys, it's a bit of a joke, but we're living the inherited property rights that came from that. And this is really interesting, because I take a slightly different perspective as well from my Swedish heritage, which is probably about halfway between, you know, the North American model and the sort of the feudal system that we're operating under, because they have private ownership, but they have very, very loose, if not non-existent, trespass laws.
In Sweden?
Yeah. And so then that's created this real communal sharing of resources. So when they do moose hunting there, for example, they will hunt moose for 1 week a year. They will have a local hunting club that if you have, you know, 5 acres or whatever in the municipality, you get a spot on that team. So they might have 30 different people who have a spot on like the village hunting team. And they'll all hunt together and do what's, you know, basically driven, you know, what could be called a mooch.
Yeah. Somebody's watching Meat Eater over there in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was thinking of the you know, but a deer drive, deer push. They do that on a massive scale for 5 whole days back to back until they get a quota. And then at the end of that week, they'd all share the meat and everyone would take their allocation. But it is still private land. They just use it in a shared way.
Huh.
Whereas, as I say here, it is basically if that pheasant walks across your property boundary onto my land, I now own that pheasant.
Right.
There's no public ownership of wildlife.
Right.
It's on my land. That's my deer. That's my pheasant.
Right.
You know, and if you trespass over here, especially armed trespass, you'll be in jail for 5 years.
Ooh.
So it's different.
So you study the property boundaries pretty good. I mean, does anybody use Onyx over there? Onyx. Is there a system like Onyx with a electronic boundary on there? Because that 5-year going to jail thing would really make me nervous.
Yeah, there isn't. There isn't Onyx, unfortunately. But look, I think because we've got hundreds, if not thousands of years of this heritage, you find that boundaries here are very well marked. Mm-hmm. Unless you're literally up in Heather Moorland.
Where you could almost can't tell the boundary yet. Yeah.
And again, in Scotland, they actually have slightly different what's called the right to roam, which isn't as freeing as you'd think. But
sounds good.
Again, it's slightly more relaxed than it is in the UK.
You only go to jail for 12 months instead of 5 years if it happens.
Yeah. It's still 5 years, but they give you breakfast, Ron. So
Nice. I like it. Were you able to do some hunting in Sweden, over the years of back and forth, from your mother's country to here?
yes, I've done a bit, and actually, my mother, as a 62-year-old woman, got her hunting license.
Really?
So I sort of, rather than it being passed down the generations, I got her into hunting. So she now breeds Cocker Spaniels.
Really?
Yeah, so she's got like 5 Cocker Spaniels. She's the crazy dog lady in the village. But she's now hunting as well. But yeah, no, I've done the sort of moose hunting over there, and actually there's much more of a family heritage over there.
Mm-hmm.
So my great grandfather was what's called a skogvakteren, which is like a forest master,
Right.
forest warden, right on the Norwegian border. So I went hunting there with my second cousin a few years ago. Did the whole moose hunt, which is, believe me, it's a week of, it's typical hunting. It's a week of sitting in the cold, wearing blaze orange, which is again something we just don't have in the UK, for one little fleeting moment of excitement. But culturally, it was great. And then what I do want to do more in Sweden, and that I really regret that we don't have in the UK, getting onto dogs, is they use, as you were doing upland hunting, pointers, setters, what you call versatile breeds, we call HPRs,
right?
Hunt Point Retrieve. So you see far more of the traditional English breeds, such as pointers and setters, which you hardly ever see here, ironically.
Really?
And the typical German, Hungarian, Italian versatile breeds, because they'll hunt black grouse, willow grouse, ptarmigan, and I don't know if you've heard of a bird called capercaillie.
I've heard of it. It's a really large.
Yeah.
I think you shoot them on the limb, though, don't you?
You can shoot them on the wing as well.
Can you?
Yeah, and we do have some in Scotland, funnily enough. But yeah, basically think of a grouse the size of a turkey.
Right.
The taste of pine needles, and you're about there. But they'll shoot those over pointing dogs, all the grouse species, because they're covering. It's all wild birds, and they're covering huge areas, looking for those few pockets, those few coveys, rather than what we have here, which is the larger numbers of birds effectively being driven towards the guns.
Right. So let's go into your dogs a little bit. What are you running with right now?
Yeah, so like I said, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Springer Spaniels. When I left university, I got back into the Spaniel world. I had a wild Springer Spaniel called Harvey, beautiful black and white. Always like the black and white ones, Ron, because I always think they look a bit shinier.
Yeah.
Being aesthetic here. And he was great. He was a really good dog, but like most people, I ruined my first dog.
Yeah.
He was better than I was as a trainer. So I let him do too much, too young, typical. But he was great fun, and I learned a huge amount. He had a wonderful personality. But then also, I'm 6'5". I'm a big guy, and I actually found that working with spaniels was a pain in the ass, because when they're bringing you a bird, you've got to bend down very low.
Right.
So I moved sort of to Labradors and had a black lab called Monty. I name all of my male dogs after Allied generals and admirals. So this is Bernard Montgomery, or Monty for short. So he was, as I say, a great dog. He was literally born in a pigsty. It was an accidental mating, but it was somebody I knew who said, "Look, come around. I've got this litter of pups. See if you want one."
Yeah.
Best thing I ever did. Monty and I, shared 12 incredibly happy seasons together. He's sadly gone. He was big. He was big but athletic. So he wasn't one of these heavy set show labs.
Yeah.
He was really, he looked like your typical working lab.
Yeah.
But bigger.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments was when I shot a fox. And he did this twice actually, and he's retrieved full-grown dog foxes for me. So on a couple of occasions. But Tyler's wonderful in the home. I had Monty when I was a single guy. When Monty died, I was a married father of two.
Right.
So, and it really hit me when he it's never easy when they pass away. How much of my life he'd shared.
Oh yeah.
It was the first dog that my kids, saw leave us, and so there's a lot of happy memories of him. And then moving on, I stayed with Labs for a while. Great gun dog breed, works perfectly for what we do in the UK, which I'll talk about in a minute. Why we don't have setters and pointers so much. And then I really wanted another dog. So I'd had a lab pass away. I had another lab called Willow, who's still with us. He's a sort of what we call fox red, a very dark yellow lab. And I really wanted another dog, but Haley, my wife, wasn't very keen. So I remember her always talking about her favourite dog, which was a golden retriever called Digby, from when she was a little girl. She was a little girl, teenager. And she still has photos of Digby. It was like a really close relationship.
Right.
So being incredibly self-serving, I sort of tentatively suggested that what about a golden retriever? Why don't we go and look at these? Long story short, got my way. But I went on as a gun on a golden retriever trial. I met people. I actually found this really, niche clique of really enthusiastic working golden retriever breeders and herders in the UK. And these dogs were just stunning, dark colours, that really dark honey colour, not quite red setter red, but getting there. Really athletic, big, strong dogs. The faces are just beautiful. And even though I started this to just get another dog, I sort of fell head over heels in love with the breed. So we got our first one from the middle of nowhere up in Cumbria, which is sort of getting up towards Scotland. And the golden retriever being a Scottish breed, of course, originally. But that was Archie. So he's called Archie for two reasons. One, going back to my naming theme, it's Archibald Wavell, who was his general. But also Archie is a very stereotypically Scottish name for a Scottish breed.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant. He's 3 now, Rob. And because of COVID, weirdly, this has been his first full hunting season.
Yeah.
And he's just been getting better and better. It's, personality-wise, so much fun. It's like having an oversized Cocker Spaniel. They're just fun. The air scenting's been really exciting because having only ever worked ground scenting dogs, having seen the difference of having a lab and a golden retriever working together.
Right.
While covering all bases, it's really effective. Yes, water. I always thought Labradors were good water dogs. My God, you cannot keep a golden retriever out of water.
Wow.
Even if there's a pool, they'll go and lie in it. But best swimming dogs I've ever seen. So, yeah, and now we're any day now waiting for our second golden retriever pup to be born, and I think we're on the slippery slope to having a full kennel before too long.
Is this another male with another military name?
Yeah, I'm toying with Chester for Chester Nimitz.
Chester Nimitz.
For this one is what we're looking at. But look, I mean, I joked about my height being a good reason for retrievers, but I suppose it's always about understanding what we do here in the UK. So on these game shoots, these syndicates, whether they're big ones or small ones, you have sort of 2 jobs for the dogs. So think of a British shoot split up into 3 groups. You've got the guns, who obviously are shooting. You've got the beaters, who are the guys pushing the birds. And then you've got what are called pickers up. So you'll get the beater's pushing through a wood. The birds will then fly over the guns, and then the pickers up will be stood behind the guns. That makes sense if you can visualize it. So the beaters would traditionally have spaniels or terriers. So they're literally they're not trying to catch any birds. They're just creating a ruckus. You know how spaniels hunt. They're not looking for a bird. They're literally just breaking the cover and pushing everything up. And then traditionally, your pickers up would have the retriever breeds, so Labradors. And what I do with my dogs is I'll either work them, so without a gun, picking up.
Right.
So you're then looking for less the birds that are shot and just dead in a field. It's more the birds of what we call pricked, which is a bird that's been dusted. Yeah. Birds carry them. And it's really important that you get on those birds, right? Running, whether they're tucked up in cover, and recover them and put them out of their misery as quickly as possible. Yeah. And that's what pickers up are there for, is not to go and pick the birds up that are, dead in a field and anyone can find them. It's to go and look for those 5-10% which have gone on a bit further. Right. So I'll either have my dogs doing that, or if I'm shooting, I'll have them with me. Just on a peg, so they'll just sit down and stay. And steadiness is a really big thing here. So they will sit down with no lead, no pegging. I will shoot birds, and they will not do anything unless I send them for a retrieve at the end of the drive.
And that's it's not. It's not genetic. It's by design, because there's no dog that wants to sit through that, right? Given their own, every dog in the world is going to like, my bird, right? It's always going to go. And I'll tell you that it's so funny when I think about American hunters and hunters in other countries. The majority of the people who enjoy like all of our public lands out here and to go grouse hunting, a couple 100,000 acres of Michigan, I'll guarantee you that about 2% of those dogs have the obedience that your dogs do to hunt on a, you know what I mean? We kind of just let them go and like, oh, where are they at? Where's the cow? We're like, oh, they're on point finally. It's kind of neat because of where you hunt and how you hunt. You have to go to that extra level. You can't have a dog fight. You can't have a dog stealing another bird, and you can't have the dog just running all over the place waiting for it. That is a now. I mean, maybe with duck hunters here, that's a closer analogy. You're sitting in a blind, of course, but when you're in the open and the dog and you're standing at a station and the dog's watching another dog do its work, sometimes that's hard on a dog. Where did you get to somebody who kind of helped you with the training part of it? Because it's without knowing how to train a dog, I think it's a little difficult. But where did your obedience training come from to get them ready for that?
Yeah, so like a lot of people, my dogs have got progressively better.
Well, yeah, and
I don't think it's the genetics,
right?
Without blowing my own trumpet, but it's I going back to Harvey. Harvey had all the natural ability. He was just trained bad. I have had help, but I've done what a lot of people did. There wasn't really resources on the internet when I was starting, but I read a lot of books. I'm very good at absorbing information and understanding it and putting it in practice.
Right.
And I did have like a couple of gun dog trainers sort of help me out, in little bits but it wasn't sort of somebody training my dog,
right,
or training me. It was just, a little bit of help here and there.
Right.
But I also find that for me, and I can't say this for everyone in the UK, I find my dogs have a natural, a natural life cycle. So when they're actually at their best and most steady when they're in that kind of 3 to 5 year old, maybe up to 6 or 7, where the problem you get is the older they get, the more they've done of the picking up, where they're chasing a wounded running bird. They've had all the fun stuff, and they start to get a bit cocky and think they know everything. Like when I'm stood on what we call a peg shooting, if I have Archie, my younger golden retriever, and I have Willow, my older Labrador, Archie will be significantly better behaved.
Really?
He won't move. I know he will. He will not move. I bet my house on it.
Right.
Willow, I wouldn't bet my house on her.
But you could override that with an obedience comeback or callback or what have you. But she'd be less likely to listen. Well, it sounds like he's still in university and she's already out in the working world, getting a little. She's going to the pub, so to speak.
Oh no, she's retired. She's sitting on a beach drinking a cocktail. She's gone then.
I can never find enough analogies of dogs and people and puppies and kids. There's so many little similarities. It's like spoiling a kid early. You're not going to get this kid to lay down and go to bed. Spoiling a dog early, you're not going to crate train them. You're not, you have to apply all those same things of parenting and dogs. I always tell people if you've got kids that you're pretty proud of, like when you go somewhere, you could probably train a dog. But if you're the kids that everybody's going, oh, yay, and you probably aren't going to do any better with that dog than you did with that child.
Yeah. Don't ask me any questions about my kids, Rob.
Well, no. I will say, if you don't mind, that you sent a picture of your daughter with her collared shirt, her tie, and her shooting garb on. Is it okay if I use that for the introduction of this episode?
Oh, of course, she'd love that. Yeah, and it's, she's 5 years old,
right?
But she's obsessed with the dogs,
right?
And she's, really confident with them as well. So she's, she helps with the training. She does, retrieving work, direction work already.
Yeah.
And she's got a really special bond with Archie, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, she was on a driven game shoot, so she's going to be in tweed shirt and tie like the rest of us. Got to dress up for the occasion. But no, it's part of it. So yeah, that photo, she's got a little tweed flat cap on. It's part of the culture and the tradition. That if you would never turn up on a game shoot without a tie.
That's just the way it is.
Would not happen.
Boy, if I ever get over there, I'm going to have to dig in for. Do you have any extra ties in the closet?
Yeah, I'll get you a blaze orange one, Rob.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just part of it, and actually, it doesn't help. That perception of it being, an elite.
That's true.
Activity. The way I always think of it is, it's part of showing, the respect for each other, but also, the respect for the quarry itself. And it just feels normal, to be honest, because as I say, ever since I was 6 years old, that's what we did.
Right.
Like anything, you grow up with it, it's normal.
Right. Yeah. But the tradition is what's. I don't know that we, other than like you said, the blaze orange is a legal requirement here. So, but you could almost probably see somebody in town, and if they were wearing a certain tweed or a certain jacket or a certain hat, you'd pretty much identify that person as a hunter almost, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. Exactly the same as if you saw somebody in Walmart in camo.
Right.
It's that sort of thing. But here it's probably a bit more nuanced because, trust me, you do not go into the middle of a town advertising that you like shooting or hunting.
Oh, okay.
It's you generally actively try and disguise.
Okay.
There's not a lot of public love for the shooting or outdoor community in this country. So it would be picking up subtle clues about a piece of, like say, a piece of footwear, a jacket.
Right. So what you wear in the hunting field at one of the syndicates, you're not going to just jump in the car and go to a restaurant in town wearing that. Then that's like no go.
No, you might go to like a village pub.
That would be okay.
That would be okay, but you wouldn't go to the a convenience store or a supermarket.
Yeah.
To do that.
I've got a rabbit hole I have to go down because when my wife and I were there, we were out in the country quite a bit, and we found a hotel And we asked them if there was any places we could go get some dinner, or certainly get a drink. And they gave us directions literally down this, what we would call here is a 2-track, a sand road or a agricultural road. And we were getting down this road quite a little ways, and we're kind of like, I feel like I was just going between 2 farms, it felt like a couple, 3 miles. And then we get into what would be probably, I'm guessing, an area that's as old as yours, from the 1700s. And we found a pub, and I'm only 5'10", and I walk at about 5'9", and I was almost hitting my head on some of the doorways and the beams in the buildings. At 6'5", did you have to raise the roof? You have to watch your head clearance there? Because I was just amazed that these buildings were so low ceiling.
Oh, look, it's a big bane of my life, right?
Okay.
I can stand up in every room in this house.
Right.
I have to duck through every doorway.
Okay, so it wasn't just what I said. That's just the way it was. Okay, yeah.
It's just the way it is. Whether people were just short back in those days, malnutrition has its benefits, has to be said.
Yeah.
But no, look, there's a rule in our family. You do not talk to me if I'm going through a doorway. If I turn around, I will smack my head.
You'll take it personal.
Yeah, although I've got to say, my kids probably know more interesting swear words than any other children.
Because there's one for every doorway.
There's one for every doorway, yeah, absolutely. But no, look, I've said this to Haley. If we do ever move, we're buying a Georgian house. Nice big doorway.
Something with, yeah. We're talking about, let's touch a little bit. I don't want to get into anti-hunting, but we did talk about that you don't run around and advertise hunting when you're in the city, or is there a strong movement, or is it just kind of we just don't talk about it, or is there a strong anti-hunting movement in the UK?
Yeah, there's a very strong anti-hunting movement, and they rely, as they do everywhere, on a more emotive-based argument and less scientific-based.
Yep.
So we've got the same realities here as we do in the States, that actually it's people who engage with the countryside, whether they're farming, hunting, fishing, are the only people who actually give a crap about saving it.
Right.
And actually put their money, their time, their effort, their resources into doing something. Whereas somebody who buys a processed vegan meal will, in their mind, think they're the only one doing it.
Right.
So we have an increasingly urban population. I think I can best describe it. My kids go to the local village school. Now, this is a rural parish. Now, you'd expect people in a rural parish to understand rural
lifestyle. Yeah.
Traditions, lifestyles. Couldn't be further from the truth. I think there are maybe 2 other parents in that school who have anything to do with hunting or fishing.
Right.
In the whole school. We just, even people who live in rural areas now come from an urban background.
And just want to live out in the country. Yeah.
They have no understanding exposure. But that goes back to, I can't expect them to. That's not what they've been brought up with. So the responsibility actually sits with myself and my compatriots to, one, act responsibly, present what we do in a good way, and actually be really knowledgeable and confident. So when we talk about science-based research, let's just not espouse, oh, you're being silly, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's use science, let's use facts, and actually show people the things we actually do. But I think a really good example of this is we've just had a law passed here through Parliament, which is affectionately being called Carrie's Law, after Boris Johnson's wife, which is basically banning the import of, it was initially supposed to be endangered species. So obviously following Cecil the lion, etc.
Yeah.
There's going to be things like lions, elephants. What's actually been passed is banning the import of over 7,000 species.
Wow.
So things like, caribou, lots of deer species, black bear, things that are not endangered in any way.
Right.
So it's not, again, it's not a science-based legislation. It's emotive. Basically, we don't want anybody going abroad and going hunting.
Right.
Even if that hunting has a conservation benefit.
Wow.
So yeah, it's repressive, but the fact is, we, as hunters everywhere, we have to be responsible for the debate, for the dialogue that we have. We can either sit here and complain about it, or we can actively try and create allies to propagate knowledge, to support the science, and fundamentally just do the right thing. So, when we're kids, we all do things that are probably questionable.
Oh, yeah.
When we've got air guns in our hands and stuff like that. I'm not going to give examples.
Right.
I think
Been there.
some things are not proud of. But, when we're bringing on the next generation, when we're acting ourselves, we always have to sort of say, am I happy for what I'm doing to be filmed and shown in a classroom?
Right.
And that's why I'm more and more leaning towards, as I say, pushing this kind of looking at it from a wildlife stewardship, wild birds, habitat management perspective, because I think that's, and I'm not condemning any other game management. I'm just saying that to me is the best, most sustainable, has the from an outsider looking in, it has the most positive connotations. And we shouldn't pander to the anti-hunting movement, but we should accept the reality of the modern world we're living in.
Yeah, have your arguments and your facts and your data and your science to back it up, and hopefully it resonates with it. It resonates enough to keep that going for the next generation. Because as big as we are here, our population demographics are probably the same. When it comes to 330 million, where there's maybe 10 million of us, it's not real good odds, And I mean, there's probably federally, I don't know if we'd ever see anything happen here, but there are certain states already where we have a lot of prohibition, a lot of things were taken away from sportsmen, like running bear with hounds. It had been done traditionally for 100 years, and the state, on those same emotions, like the anti-hunters, they have what we call a ballot initiative state, and basically a few thousand people who don't like something can get something on the ballot without knowing anything about the pros. They can get it on a ballot, and then you have that same people, like in your parish, there's only 2% of you that are into the outdoors. The other ones aren't mean people. They're just not educated, and then you show them something that sounds like, oh, that's bad, yeah. And all of a sudden, we fight the same thing. We just fight it on, in 50 different states.
Yeah, and the whole ballot challenge that you have in the states and in some areas terrifies me. Mm-hmm. I mean, my master's is in politics, and there's this phrase, tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
And it's just because the majority, desire or want something. The whole principle of, that's democracy. That's not liberal democracy. I know we're slipping into politics.
Right.
I'll get on to religion in a minute. Really fire things up. That whole principle of liberal democracy is it's protecting the rights of all.
Right.
And that includes protecting minority rights against that tyranny of the majority. But this is a very slippery slope, so I'll probably backtrack a little bit on that one.
No, but it's true. Protecting, you made a reference earlier.
The recording has stopped.
Oops, hold on a minute. Let me get that back on.
This meeting is being recorded.
I brushed my cigar ash off the mouse pad, but my other recorder's working all the time. You mentioned that, protecting the minority, and you had a reference to LGBTQ, and I never had anybody put that in there, but it made sense, right? You've got to make awareness, and people have learned to accept things, and that's probably what we have to hope for. Put our best foot forward, and be accepted. And if we don't, if we don't put our best foot forward, we're not going to be accepted. And it wouldn't take much to vote us out of the parliament. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. Look, allies, advocates, and look, but it does come back just being, being good in what we do as well.
Yeah.
That is important. We shouldn't, you know, and something that obviously I hear a lot coming out of the States, which I really do fundamentally agree with, is this whole guard the gate principle. It's, it is a slippery slope. For you guys, it's things like hound hunting, or baiting for bears.
Right.
That is the entry level.
Yep.
For us here, it was fox hunting.
Wow.
I don't fox hunt. I have no interest in going fox hunting. I did go to a boarding school that had a pack of beagles, but that's very unusual. Very unusual. And but I'm not that. I like the dogs. I don't want to go around chasing a fox around on a horseback.
Right.
It's not my thing. But it was very clear that if you just said, well, that's fox hunting's problem, let's forget about it.
Right.
Because, of course, when fox hunting was done, where did they go next?
Yeah. Another hunting. Yeah.
So it is unfortunate. But we also have to be confident that actually we have a very vibrant, long-standing game shooting and dog working heritage in the UK. That actually we are stewards of the countryside, albeit through private ownership. We do an enormous amount of good for wild bird conservation and general wildlife conservation.
Right.
So it's not as if we have to change what we're doing. We don't. We're doing all the right things. We just have to present it
Right.
in a way to engage with as many people as possible. But look, going back to sort of being a dog podcast, it's, what better way to do that than through our canine companions?
Right.
One loves dogs. And actually, last summer, so during, my before my daughter started at primary school, she was in a nursery.
Right.
And, they weren't allowed to, they would always normally get people to come in and do like show and tells and stuff. And they weren't able to do that. So they started looking for people to come and do external things. And they're asking for like anything to do with animals. So I offered to take the dogs and do a bit of a gun dog demonstration.
Yeah.
And these are all kids, all, under 4 and under.
Yeah.
Basically. And, they loved it. They loved it. They loved seeing, and because I took Archie and he's a big soppy golden retriever, he was there getting tickles and rolling around, getting his belly tucked and his ears fluffed up. But then he did the serious dog work, and they got to see, this isn't the little pointy-eared French bulldog who can go and retrieve a dummy if it saved his life. That this was, a smart working dog, and seeing what it was actually capable of. They're not hearing about shooting. They're not thinking about, bird dying. They're just seeing something they love.
A dog. Yep.
Doing something really interesting and fun. So I do think that, dog work, engaging with dog handling, is a really great thing to put at the forefront of engaging with non-hunters.
Yeah. It could be kind of like your, you'll never get hunter safety into schools, but if you get the hunters' dogs into schools, you snuck in the back door a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it with engagement. So, we're very gladly we're seeing more and more women shooting in the UK, and it is on the rise. But actually, you've always had a lot of female dog handlers in the UK.
The Queen.
Exactly, the Queen's Labradors. Yes, yeah. And famously the Corgis.
Yeah.
But she's very, very actively involved, and Sandringham still has amazing Labrador kennels as well. But there is a rich, long history of women being involved in dog handling work, breeding working dog lines of working dogs here in the UK. And that's something to be celebrated, because the dogs are one of the best way for people to actually access and come into this sport. And if you think about sports in this country, so I spoke earlier about on a game sheet, you've got the beaters, the guns, the pickers up. But if you have a spaniel and want to come beating, it doesn't cost you any money. You're actually going to get paid.
Oh.
You get paid £20 to come and beat.
Nice.
So in terms of actually, access to dog work, to sport, that's the best way to get people into it as well.
Yeah.
Now, if you get them coming along working their dog, eventually they're going to want to get a gun.
Oh yeah.
They're going to want to hunt.
Right.
So it does feel like a best foot forward on that one.
Yeah. I want to touch. We talked about like the history of the history of hunting in England. Maybe it was all just the gentry back in the day, but the other history that England has is their guns. So, I mean, that's undeniable. I think here we stumble when it comes to, and maybe I'm sure there's somebody here that makes a few guns, but the history of guns in England, my friend Bill Walters got me into my first, what I'd say, good English double. It was a Boswell, Charles Boswell. And again, you didn't get your guns from your father, but you really you didn't go 1749 like the house, but you backed up another 50, 60 years in your gun. Tell a little bit about some of you've sent me some pictures, and they're just the gun trade or the gun building in England is just second to none. And how did you fall in love with that, or did it just, did you always know about it?
I mean, look, I live in an old house for a reason. I like old things.
Yeah.
I like wood. I like craftsmanship. You can feel
Right.
history. You can feel sweat in things that are made of wood. I know you've spoken about that before. I think a little bit of sort of history of it, really. I mean, if you go back to, talk about the Golden Retriever. The Golden Retrievers were the genesis of the breed. Was a guy called Sir Dudley Marshbanks up in Scotland. He was later Baron Tweedmouth. Talk about the aristocracy a bit more. Tweedmouth. So he was a Scottish politician. And he created the breed in the 1860s. Now the sporting world that that they were first created into, was, think about it, the centerfire cartridge only really got perfected in 1855.
Yeah.
So prior to that, you were talking about muzzle loaders, walked up shooting, pointers, setters.
Right.
That period, so around the genesis of the Golden Retriever as a breed, was one of those key moments in sporting history in the UK, because that was when you got the change from what we'd call walked up shooting,
right,
which similar to what you do in upland hunting.
Right.
So swarms of wild birds over pointers and setters, and it turned into what we still have as the more modern, driven shooting bateau style of hunting, with large numbers of pheasants being released,
right,
and driven teams of guns. And the centerfire cartridge enabled that. So you got the creation of what, the classic style of English game shotguns.
Yeah.
Are designed not for shooting a bird that's rising in front of you and going away, but for shooting a 35 to 45, 50 yard pheasant that's directly above you.
Right.
So it's a hard shot. It's, you're looking at 2 5-bar gates of lead. It's a significant sporting challenge.
Yeah.
So these were, designed to fit perfectly to the user. They were designed to be very intuitive, fast handling, but very steady. So as we all know, when you miss a bird, you normally miss it behind, you stop swinging the barrels.
Right.
So these were designed to avoid that. So the classic design is 30-inch barrels,
Yep.
side by side, with a concave rib,
Yep,
and a single brass bead. So effectively, when you mount the gun, you see nothing but the bead.
right.
You don't see the barrels, you don't see the rib. A very thin splinter fore end, and then a straight hand stock with double triggers. These obviously start as non-ejectors, but very quickly move to ejectors. Now, you'd normally have seen these made in pairs.
Yeah.
So every, we're talking like late Victorian, early Edwardian era.
Right.
Have a gun and a loader. So the loader would be stuffing the cartridges into gun number 2 as you're firing gun number 1. And then you'd hand them, bang, bang, hand them the gun, get the other one back. But these guns would be, as I say, 12 bore, 13-inch barrels, about 6.5 pounds. But the key thing was the gun fit. So they'd be fitted so that you would have very clear sight to the bead, so perfect mount with your cheek weld, and that would have perfect length of pull. That's important. I mean, I say 6'5". I need a much longer gun than most people. I can't buy a side-by-side off the shelf and it shoot perfect.
Right.
So that's kind of and the big names that came out of this were the ones we probably all heard of: Holland, Purdy,
Boss,
and Boss.
Yeah.
Being the big 3,
right?
And then you've got like the tier below them, probably of what you'd call the other London best manufacturers, people like Stephen Grant, Churchill's, so E.J. Churchill, William Evans, those sort of manufacturers. And then you had what would then be the more provincial, so particularly in the Birmingham gun trade, so people like Webley and Scott. And others up and down the country, but they're all handmade guns, just to various standards. But these are the high watermark. This was the golden epoch of handmade gun making.
Yeah.
There are still some beautiful guns being made today, but this is when they were at their height, and there's no. And you've got to think as well. All of these designs that were around late 1900s are basically still being made today in exactly the same way. But when they were being made then, that was the new technology. It's an important thing to sort of remember. So by the time they had, in the box locks, the anti-Dealey action, the sort of particularly like the Holland Royal style side locks. The ejection mechanisms, self-opening guns, which you don't see as much in modern side-by-sides now. So an assisted opening action. These were, the high watermark, which is why they're still being made like that today. I've got a number of guns from the early 1900s, which are, a mix of English, sort of provincial and Belgian guns.
Right.
I think the 2 that I enjoy the most, I've got an Adams and Co. So London, sort of, as I say, that they're kind of not the big 3, but the sort of London best. So it's a non-ejector hammer gun, 12 bore. It's got what's called a Jones rotary underlever. Mm-hmm. So it's not a top lever from the early 1870s. And that's still a very usable gun. I've had it nitro proof, so I can still use sort of lower pressure modern shot shells through it. I actually shot a couple of pheasants with it this season. It's good fun. I had a skein of Canada geese fly over me when I had it, but I thought with an ounce of 7, that might not go down too well.
Yeah.
But look, I've got to be honest, the guns I use more than, and I've got like Berettas, Garini, stuff like that. The guns I use more than any other, and I'm most proud of, is I've got a pair of Stephen Grant side levers. So these are side-by-side side locks with stocks made out of such beautiful walnut. I wish I could marry them.
Right.
They're stunning. So these things are 30-inch barrels, classic game guns. The most interesting about it, the reason I bought them, is the side levers. So I don't know if anyone's seen a side lever. You probably have to Google it and look at a picture. But rather than having a top lever, it's got an intricate sort of dog-legged lever to the side lock action that you'd press down with your thumb to then open the barrels. Obviously, ejector. They've got, as a beautiful wood. I had a saddler actually make some leather-covered extensions. You can't stick a piece of rubber on a gun like this.
No, never.
So these have been. It's basically cast steel, then wrapped in, as they would make a horse saddle.
Right. Is this for length of pull?
Yeah, basically to build them. So they were as standard, just over 15 inch, and I've had them built out to about 16 inch.
16. I'm 14 and a quarter, 14 and 3/8.
I'll lend you a gun, Ron. It'd be hilarious. But no, it's I think the style of shooting that you have to adopt is it's a bit more like I do traditional archery as well, and they talk about instinctive. It's much more getting into that mindset. Whereas if I'm shooting an over and under, I think of it as deliberate shooting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking much more about what I'm going to do, and I'm driving the gun rather than letting the gun be part of what I'm doing. And I think that's what a really good, proper, balanced English shotgun enables you to do. And in fairness, some of the German and Italian manufacturers as well are able to achieve that. But to do that, you need that stock to fit.
Right.
You need the cast. You need the length of pull to be right. And I'm a really strong believer, unlike over and unders and repeaters, if you have a side by side, you're better to be slightly long in the stock than too short. You can get away with slightly long. You cannot get away with too short.
You're too crunched up.
Yeah, you just don't get that sight picture right. And so you're almost defeating the point of using a nice, fast-handling, intuitive side-by-side. But all that being said, Ron, I've also got a Winchester Model 12 in the cabinet as well, which is the longest gun I've got. It's huge, little 30-inch duck gun, and which because we're in the UK and nobody wants one, I got for peanuts, absolute peanuts.
Really? Now, how did that fall into the 3-shot magazine rule for shotguns?
Yeah, because a previous owner had already had it crimped.
Okay.
To make it compliant, but I look with bismuth, that's still a great duck gun in this country. But problem is, I can't find a gun slit that's long enough for it.
Well, maybe your daughter can shoot it in a few years. Well, I will tell you that 6'5", that is not a gun fitter's. It's more of a gun fitter's nightmare. I have a son-in-law who is 6'7". I don't want to 2-inch it to death, but he's 6'7". But he's not a shooter. But his grandson is already, or my grandson, his son is already 36 inches tall, and he's going to have his second birthday here. So I have a Model 12 16 gauge that I found at an auction one time, and I've never measured it, but it's far too long for me, like far too long. So I'm hoping he might get in there and maybe stay down a couple inches. I think you could shoot this Model 12. I'll have to measure the stock.
No, look, it's I do think with over and unders repeaters, you got a lot more wiggle room with stock length. Yeah. But no, look, there'll be a nice side by side out there for him somewhere.
Well, that's cool. Well, listen, Ollie, I appreciate it. I always say we take an hour, but who cares? We have good conversation. It takes longer. Are you having a little brown water there in the what are you drinking there?
Yeah, I'm celebrating our naval heritage with a drop of rum.
A drop of rum. Okay. Well, I'm celebrating Milwaukee with the Miller Lite. I'm glad you wrote me. I'm glad we had a chance to do this. And one of these days, if I can convince, if my wife is down at Orlando, she'll go down to see the grandkids or go down, and I might just squeak across the pond and try to at least absorb a little of that. I would just love to be a little immersed in that tradition of where what everybody here, I don't think they all realize it, but it really started there. The traditions, the game shooting, the guns, everything, and I don't mind putting a tie on at least for a day or two, as long as I can take it off when we're done shooting.
I'm sure you must be someone with invitations coming out your ears, but you'd definitely be welcome. And this is the thing I love about all outdoor sports. The fact that we've never met, but we can talk for an hour and a half about the things we love.
Right.
And be really open and appreciative of other, how things are done differently elsewhere.
Yeah.
A great example, I spoke briefly about traditional archery. I got into it in lockdown, just as something to do in the garden.
Yeah.
I can't fire a gun in the garden. I can shoot a bow.
Yeah.
And it just catapulted me into this completely new community that I never knew existed.
Right.
To the point where I'm now going at the end of February, I'm going to be hunting hogs in Texas with guys from Compton Traditional Bow Hunters in the States.
Oh, really?
And I've never met them before. The first time I meet them, I'm flying into Dallas.
No kidding.
Friends with somebody else from the UK, a friend called Rashid, who's here. I've never hunted with a bow. I've hunted lots of big game. I've been shooting it for the last 2 years in the garden. But that would never have happened if it wasn't for the fact that outdoor pursuits just encourages people who
It does.
like relationships like this.
Yeah, if you talk to somebody long enough, you kind of start wanting to do whatever they do. Like, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look for a lever gun now. Was everybody forced to be? I know this is. I'm going to wrap this up on my usual silliness. I have a friend from England who has a shooting school, or used to have a shooting school in Virginia, and he implied to me. I never really asked him that you back in the day you were taught to be right-handed in penmanship, right? Did they do the same thing with shooting? Was there a right, because you got left eye, right eye dominance, because I'm gonna need a gun for a lefty. Oh.
Yeah.
I hate to ask you to bend a good gun for me.
Yeah. My parents' generation.
Yeah.
Yes. That was still very much the case. So my father-in-law, Noel's, certainly got some stories, and he's from a sort of Irish Catholic background.
Oh, yeah.
Being made to write right-handed.
Yep.
Get the devil out of him and all of that.
Yeah.
But no, look, certainly sort of my living memory.
Right.
No. But look, it's just, I think it's even more of a challenge to find good left-hand shotguns, because we've just got less in the country, full stop.
Yeah.
I'm actually centre vision.
Oh, really?
So, but I've always shot with one eye closed.
Really?
And yeah, I always have it. Even when I was younger and I've shot clays competitively, I always shot with one eye closed, and it just works for me.
Wow.
And when it got to the point where I could buy the right gun, there are centre vision guns out there with a bent stock, sort of a swan neck stock, which bends the gun so it lines up square down the middle. So I could get one, but the reality is there are far more other, right-handed or left-handed shotguns available. Yeah. So I just stuck with what I was doing. It was working.
Good.
I don't hit everything, but I hit enough.
Good. That's all any of us can do. It's all. All right, Ollie, I really appreciate your time. It's been, like I said, I do get invites. I don't get that many invites because I don't interview that many people, 3,000 miles away or 4,000 miles away. And once somebody says it, I got this from my dad. My dad had a little address book that he got in World War II, and he had names of people he went through boot camp with. And till the day he died, he was still visiting some of those people. So I do take people up on invites, so be careful.
Well, I would say a golden retriever trial in the UK would be...
I'll bring the recording equipment. I'll bring a camera.
Yeah.
And I'll bring my tweed. No, I don't have any tweed.
Yeah. Tweed we can do.
All right, sounds good. You can get some tweed at the Walmart, right? I want to get fitted for. All right, good talking with you, Ollie.
Thank you. Look, thank you for your time.
All right,
really
thank you.
It.
The recording has stopped.
Well, what do you think of that? Anyway, I'm going. I'm going. My problem is my wife's going to want to go see all the Harry Potter castles again. But I think I can just sneak up to the what do they call it? The Middlelands? Yeah, the Middlelands. The Middlelands region. I'm going to get there. I'm going to go see Ollie and his kids and his wife, and I'm going to go shoot me some. I'm going to shoot me some red grouse and some pheasants and stand on a peg with a proper dog and a proper gun. I want to thank my Patreon patrons: Pike Gear, Onyx, Bosch. I almost said Weatherby. I wonder how I almost that was a little asterisk there. Boss Shot Shells, Waltons, Purina, Gunner Kennels, Garmin, Canine Athlete, W Hunting Supply, Deck Drawer Systems, Shooting Sportsman Magazine, and my favorite sponsor, my own little company, the Upland Institute. Be a better trainer. I love you guys. I love you girls, and I love you girls more.